Hi guys, while I'm gone today and you have a sub, I figured it'd be easier if I just taught you how to do this via YouTube. So what we're going to do today on Wednesday is hug an article, which stands for highlight, underline, and get. So on the packet handouts that I handed you on Tuesday, if you turn to page 3, you'll notice that we start on page 3 with step 2, highlighting articles and avoiding plagiarism. The first thing that you need to do with the 5 to 7 articles that you found in order to do this research paper is to hug them. So what we're going to do is find information that pertains to the 3 points that you identified in your scratch outline that we were working on Tuesday. The first thing you want to do is highlight what is important, and that will mean that you need to get 3 different colors. If you don't have 3 different colored highlighters, you could use different colored pencils and underline it or circle it or do whatever. But I found that students succeed more when they have different colors in order to organize their ideas. So what you'll do first is highlight what's important, and then you're going to underline the details. This I would use just a regular pencil or a pen for, and not the same color that you used in the highlight method. And then the last thing you're going to use is get it into your own words, what we call paraphrasing. On each page, you're going to only do about 8 lines per page, so there's not going to be a lot that's hugged on each page. You only want the key concepts and information that's worth rereading. If it isn't relevant or it's not worth our time, we shouldn't be hugging it. When you are doing the get it in your own words part, you're going to make notes for yourself in the margin, and then you want to use a scratch outline Roman numeral and the subpoint letter. And I will show you what all of this means in an example with a tattoo article that the sub will hand you. So to get started, you want to be on step 2, this on one side of your desk, and then on the other side of your desk, your sub will hand you a worksheet that looks like this. And it's all about tattoo aftercare, how to take care of your new tattoo. In order to hug this article, the first thing that I want to do is go ahead and read through it. Once I've read it and I have a general understanding of what this article is about, then I want to go through and do a close reading of the article. In order to do this, I'm going to get out a highlighter. So for this, I will just use yellow, and I'll make yellow be my first point. Then I'll go through and I'll try to find all of the information that is important. And while I'm doing this, it's the first time that I've read it, so it might take me a little while. So the first thing I noticed is that the first thing you want to do when you get a new tattoo is to keep the coverage on it for as long as you can, but it does recommend a minimum of 2 hours. Then I also noticed that if you had saran wrap, you're supposed to take it off. So I would highlight that as an important point. Another point that I noticed when I'm learning about aftercare of my tattoo is that I'd want to wash it. So I'm highlighting that important part too. And I also think it's important that I know how to wash it and what to use when I'm washing it. I didn't find anything else in the wash and treat part of the paragraph that was super important, that it deserved to be highlighted, nor did I find anything super important in the specialty products and lotion. Most of that information was just additional information, but it didn't require it to be highlighted. However, when I got to the bathing, showering, hot tubs, and swimming, I found that showering with a tattoo is okay and that it's okay to get it wet. You just can't soak it. So that would be my main idea from there. And then when I get to scabbing and peeling, excessive scabbing could indicate a poorly done tattoo, but a little is sometimes normal. So I would want to highlight that, not that part. And then it tells me how to do that specifically, but that would be detail information that I would underline later. And then under the protection from the sun, I find that part to be important. So you'd want to protect it from the ultraviolet rays. So that's how I would hug it. Do you notice how I don't have a ton of yellow on there for highlighting it, but it just gives me the basic um, important information that I found after I read this article. The next thing I would do on this article is to underline it. And when I'm underlining it, remember I'm looking for details that cannot be changed. So I highlighted what was most important, and then I'm underlining the details. And when I'm looking for details, what I would do is look out for things that tells me how to keep it covered, how to wash it specifically, um, the specific lotions they talk about, what to do if you're in the hot tub or anything like that, and then how to take care of it. So I'm just going to use the underline tool on the computer, and you can just use a pen or a pencil to do this. So as I'm reading, most of my stuff would come after the yellow stuff. I wouldn't want anything before it. So reading through this, an open flesh wound is breeding ground. So that sounds like it is an important detail of why we would want to keep it wrapped in whatever the tattoo artist gave us. And then I feel like this highlighted portion covers up that paragraph pretty well, so I wouldn't need to underline anything on there. On here, as I'm reading this, I might want to change this line to an underline, actually, now that I look at it more, just because it tells me how to take care of it when I'm washing and treating it. So I'm going to change both of these sections to be underlined rather than highlighted. And I feel like using a washcloth or anything abrasive and using your hand instead is probably more detail information that I can underline. And then I want to pat with a clean paper towel and follow it with an ointment. And I probably want to underline this because it seems like the fact that the author used these asterisks to point out not to use Neosporin, it probably is pretty important. Using what your author uses as text features will help you determine importance in something as well. When I read this, it tells me that I could use different products, so I might underline that as specialty products to treat and take care of my tattoo, which would fall under this information up here. And then under the bathing, showering, and hot tubs, it tells me I want to avoid hot tubs or baths for 2 to 3 weeks. And that sounds like it is important additional information about my main topic on there. And then I should also avoid swimming for 2 weeks as well. If there's scabbing and peeling, it tells me to apply a moist compress and do this 2 to 3 times a day, and it'll eventually take care of itself. And I think that's kind of important. And if it starts to itch, you shouldn't pick or scratch, so that's probably important. And notice how I'm not using the whole sentence. I'm just underlining the key words and terms on here that will help me see the importance and pick out what is important versus what is just filler information. And then it just says that keep your tattoo protected from the sun, and you can do that with protecting it with a minimum at 30 SPF. So I'd want to underline that as well. So there, now I have it partially hugged with the highlighting and the underlining, and now I need to move forward and do this with the getting the information in my own words. Otherwise, I would be close to plagiarizing. Because I'm doing this on Microsoft Word, I'm able to use the review tools to put in marginal notes. However, for you, you can just use a pencil and do it in the margin, or go ahead and just do it on a separate piece of paper or on the back of the article. So what I did is I just highlighted this whole section that I highlighted or underlined, and I'm going to put that whole thing into my own words. And I'm going to try to just do it in a whole sentence. That way it's already done for me when I go to my paper. However, you can choose to just put it in fragments or phrases if that helps you, or if you find that you don't have very much space. So in order to paraphrase, one method you can do is to read it, flip it over, and then try putting it in your own words without looking at it. So I'm first going to read it. Your artist took the care to cover up your new tattoo for a very good reason, to keep airborne bacteria from invading your wound. Yes, as pretty as your new tattoo is, it is still a wound. Open flesh is a breeding ground for bacteria and infection. Leave the bandage on for a minimum of 2 hours. Now I'm going to think about how I can put this in my own words. If I had this on paper, I would flip it over, but I obviously can still look at it on the computer. So first off, I have to make sure that I'm not writing it in the same sentence format as it is written, and I can combine ideas to shorten it as well. So to put it in my own words, I wrote, tattoo artists cover new tattoos because of airborne bacteria. It is recommended to keep the coverage on for at least 2 hours. Otherwise, it could become infected. Notice how my paraphrasing uses the same ideas and the same information. However, I put it in my own words and I use my own sentence structure to do so. Then I would go to my next thing that I highlighted or underlined, and I would want to make another marginal note to get it in my own words. So I'm going to change, you're better off having it not having any covering than to be suffocating your new tattoo with plastic wrap. Now I want to put this in my own terms. So I said plastic wrap, like saran wrap, is worse for your tattoo than no covering at all. So make sure you take it off. If you're an artist, wrap the tattoo in that. So then I would continue with each of my underline or highlighted sections. And you, by all means, can take a whole chunk of information like I did in the first example, or go line by line like I did in my second example. So what you're doing today is working on hugging this article. And then if you finish early, your job is to begin hugging your own articles that you printed off on Tuesday.